I admit I have been creatively frustrated. Until last month, it had been a long time since I'd written a song. And so all my ideas were piling up on the Notes app on my phone, voice note, sticky note, Google Docs, random scraps of paper. I kept saying, oh, I'll get to it. But truth be told, I won't have time for it unless I make time for it. So what was stopping me? Sure, I have a busy schedule as a mom and musician, but I think deep down, the more I thought about how rusty I was getting, the more unmotivated I would be to go actually sit down. Because the thought of sitting down and staring at a blank page just felt incredibly intimidating. Then I recently got inspired by one of my guests on the Christian Guitar Girls podcast. There's a singer-songwriter named Elise Bourne who, during the pandemic, spent an entire month, 30 days, where she wrote a song every day. And she ended up doing an entire album from that. And I'd also heard of other people who have done that before, like John Foreman from Switchfoot. It got me thinking, what if I tried something like that? So I made a plan. I decided to work on a song a day, Monday to Friday, for 4 weeks. That's 20 songs. Even if I didn't finish the song, I would have roughly an hour to an hour and a half to work on it, so I would get as far as I could. Now, that is actually more songwriting than I've ever done in that span of time in my entire life. I was afraid if I didn't do this, then I would allow that intimidation of the blank page to grow and grow to the point where I would just be paralyzed. However, if I could pull this off, then I would be able to actually move toward recording my next album and hopefully encourage people with the lessons that God has taught me in the last few years. So with a plan in place, I committed to showing up as a songwriter for 20 days. And here's how it went. Hey, Future Chelsea here. Just wanted to let you know that I put together a free PDF for you with a bunch of my favorite songwriting tips, including some that are not mentioned in this video. And then also in that PDF is a little guide on how to create your own songwriting challenge. So you can pick that up at chelseaamber.com/songwriting. All right, back to the video. Day 1 of the songwriting challenge. I've got a timer. I've got my document. I've got my guitar. I've got my coffee drink. I'm excited to do this. I'm also a little nervous that I'm going to sit down every day and just draw a blank. So hopefully that doesn't happen. I'm trying to relieve the pressure. I think when I draw a blank, it's because it's not that I don't have any ideas. It's just I throw out every idea and think, oh, that's dumb. And then I just don't. And then I come to a standstill. So I'm going to throw perfectionism out the window and see what I come up with. Day 1 is complete. I'm encouraged to say that I did not come up empty-handed. I would say it's a rough draft. It's not like this amazing song, but hey, I showed up. And it has potential. I just finished the first week, day 5, 4 of the 5 songs I'm actually really excited about. The one that I'm not excited about, I learned that if you're going to write in a genre that you don't normally write in, it's good to actually research how to write in that genre first. I tried to approach it with very poetic and descriptive language and, just like thinking as a poet. And my husband heard it and said, well, you've got too many lyrics. And I did hear a video recently of John Mayer talking about how songwriters tend to overwrite. And I definitely did this with the blues songs. So I need to go back and like completely overhaul that one. But I learned a lot, so it's still a win. Some things that I found really helpful this week to help me like get those songs out were rhymezone.com, specifically going into the near rhymes, not just the true rhymes, near rhymes. That gives way more just ideas and options. And then thesaurus.com. And then I tried to vary how I started the song. Sometimes it would be from a title. Sometimes it would be like a track that my husband made a long time ago and sent me to write over. Maybe I started it by playing some chords on the guitar and strumming and just seeing what I came up with for a melody. So it really helped to not draw a blank. So 5 days down and 15 to go. We are on day 10. I'm so proud of myself for making it this far. Yay. One of the things that I had to push through this week was some negative self-talk. So I had to remind myself that it's okay to write for the garbage can. And I was listening, really binge watching videos from a channel called How to Write Songs. And one thing that I found really helpful that the lady said, I forget her name, but you can go check out their channel. she was quoting someone else saying that 70% of what you write is gonna be mediocre, 20% is gonna be just terrible, and then 10% is going to be really good. And so I had to remind myself that it's okay to have that 70% and that 20%. Next couple things that helped me out is that I noticed I was always writing either major or minor, which is fine, but I thought it's time to experiment with other modes. So that was good to help me kind of break out of my normal writing pattern. And another thing, speaking of writing patterns, is I noticed that a lot of my melodic frameworks were the same from song to song, and it's not a bad framework, but I think it's good to push myself outside of the regular structure that I normally use for melodies. And that was one of the benefits of doing this challenge, is that if I'm writing songs, a month apart or more than that, months apart, I don't always notice, I've written the last 3 songs with the same kind of structure. So writing these songs every day back to back helped me realize, I have the same patterns over and over again. Although they're not bad, it's good to break out. So tried a different structure for melody. And then the last thing that I found helpful that I'd never tried before was to use ChatGPT, yes, AI, for brainstorming. So I didn't use lyrics from ChatGPT, but I had a metaphor in mind that I wanted to use. So I asked ChatGPT to give me words and actions, verbs related to this particular topic. And then seeing this list of words helped me come up with some lyrics. So that was my challenge, and I'd love to share some thoughts with you about things I struggled with and also the tips that I used to help overcome those struggles. So number 1 was negative self-talk. I did really struggle with that, and something that helped me was to be able to give myself permission to write a bad song. I told myself over and over again, write for the garbage can, write for the garbage can. It doesn't matter if anybody hears this song. If nobody hears it, it's good practice. The second struggle was to get the ball rolling. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know where to start. So if it was lyrics, then I would spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes just writing out prose. I would literally just write a paragraph, not worry about trying to be poetic or anything, but just write what I want to say or anything I can think of that is related to the song. And that would help me kind of churn some ideas for actual lyrics. And then if I was starting with a melody, then let's say if I had a title and I wasn't sure what melody to put to that title or that kind of key line, then I would say the lyric and feel out the natural cadence of the words. So once I figured out where the natural emphases are in that phrase when I'm speaking it, then I can add on a melody or notes or whatever that would accent the things that would naturally be accented anyway. Struggle number 3 is that in the hour to hour and a half I had per day, I didn't actually finish most of the songs. I discovered that I probably need about 3 hours to finish a song, and I think it's okay to break it up. So what I'm going to do is go back and pick my favorites and then finish those and then go through the editing process. More on that in another video. Struggle number 4 was the curse of the second verse. I've heard a lot of songwriters talk about this, but sometimes we don't actually know what to say in the second verse. It's like, well, I've said what I want to say in verse 1 in the chorus. I'm not sure what else I want to add here. So what I found helpful for that was to create a song map. And so I would kind of map out, even before I did the lyrics, what do I want the point of the song to be? Like, what is the overall thesis? That'll be my chorus. And then I would map out, well, what element do I want to use to point to that chorus in verse 1? And then in verse 2, what's another angle I can use to point back to that chorus? And so just having a framework in mind has helped me overcome that second verse, the second verse scaries. Struggle number 5 was that in my 4th week, I found it really hard to get myself motivated. I still showed up, and I think it was still good practice, but in the future, I might actually condense it to like 3 weeks. I think that's a good amount of time. So a few things I learned in this past month is that number 1, inspiration is everywhere. Once that pump is primed and I'm like in that mindset, then I was looking around me and seeing lots of different ideas. There were a number of ideas that I worked on last month that I didn't have at the beginning of the month. They came as I got going. And that leads me to my second thing, that if I show up, I will come up with something. It may not be great. It may be writing for the garbage can, as I said, but I will come up with something, and there is no need to be intimidated by the blank page. I found actually the inspiration usually kicked in after I sat down and started rather than before. And the third thing that I learned last month is that the greatest enemies to my songwriting right now are self-doubt and perfectionism. But this exercise helped me realize that I do have something valuable to say if I give myself permission to say it. So I want to encourage you to pursue the dream that God has laid on your heart. Do not let intimidation stop you. Just make a plan and go for it, and I'll be there cheering you on. And don't forget to go to chelseaamber.com/songwriting to get your copy of the free PDF containing a bunch of my favorite songwriting tips and a guide on how to create your own songwriting challenge. I'll see you in the next video.